Hello and welcome. My name is Mr. Msomi, senior journalist at Independent Media. This is the Indie Sports Show. Basically, we get to discuss some of the most telling talking points over the weekend's PSL action. There's quite a few things to discuss this weekend, so let's get strapped in and see how far we can get with this discussion. Yeah, I think the one thing that makes sense really is starting right at the top. Orlando Pirates, Mamelodi Sundowns, doing their best to give us what could be a title race for their history books, depending on how both teams are able to navigate through their remaining sets of games. At the moment, Mamelodi Sundowns currently hold a 12-point gap at the top of the table. I mean, this isn't new to us. We've seen this for a number of seasons, except for that one season where Kaizer Chiefs were able to push them all the way to the final day. But at this moment, the Brazilians actually have a 12-point gap over Orlando Pirates, but also do bear in mind that Pirates have 3 games in hand, and if they could potentially make up those points, that gap could just go down to as small as 3. So, yeah, but as the old saying goes, points in the bank is much, much better than games in hand. So it's going to be very, very, very interesting to see how both clubs actually navigate the upcoming weeks. Of course, for Sundowns, this is just routine. They go in there and they get out. I mean, it came as a surprise when they lost to TS Galaxy 2 weeks ago, but then they showed us what they're actually capable of and what we all were actually expecting in that first game, when they thumped them 4-1 this weekend. Even though they had lost to Galaxy, even though they had had tricky games to Galaxy over recent seasons as well, but I don't think anyone was surprised to see Mamelodi Sundowns go 2 goals up in the first 10 minutes. It seemed as if it was going to get away from Galaxy. It seemed as if it could be an ugly score as well, with Shalulile on song, Lucas Ribeiro on song. You had Allende, you had... No, man, not Allende. You had Jaden Adams pulling strings. Jaden Adams is a special player, by the way. You had Jaden Adams, who eventually walked away the man of the match on the day, pulling strings, got a goal as well. It seems as if he's just settled into that Mamelodi Sundowns team and fitted in like a glove. It looks like he's been there for years, and that's just purely a testament to the kind of player that he is. So, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting couple of weeks for Mamelodi Sundowns. But on an Orlando Pirates perspective, they were able to come back and exert a cold, hard dish of revenge on Cape Town City. It seems as if there might be something that's brewing there. Of course, Cape Town City led by former Orlando Pirates coach Machine Etugro. So there was always a lot of subplots associated with that particular game. Tekofata Mabasa coming up with the equalizer. Goodman Musele playing his first game, I think, in 2 years for Pirates, coming up with the winner. So there was quite a few interesting angles to look at from an Orlando Pirates perspective, in a period where they're gonna need a lot of depth. So we see the likes of Ndabaete Londo coming into the picture. We see the likes of Goodman Musele returning to action. We saw evidence Mahopa getting a run as well, just when Pirates needed a goal. So there's quite a few positives for Coach Jose Rivero. Uncharacteristically so, we saw him lose his head a bit at the end of the game. Who knows what happened there between him and the officials, but it was one of those emotional games. It was one of those memorable games. Maybe it could be one of those games where he looks at the end of the season and thinks that's when he was able to see the championship mentality, the championship mettle from his side. But only time could actually tell how far that sort of thing could take this Orlando Pirates team. From a KZN perspective, obviously the form of AmaZulu is something that has caught a lot of people's eyes. Unsurprisingly so, for someone like me in particular that's based in KZN and has been following the club extensively over recent months, recent seasons as well. Are we finally seeing AmaZulu hit their true potential? I mean, in recent seasons, we've seen them lure some of the biggest names in football all the way to the club, but they just haven't found their footing or haven't made the requisite sort of impact that was expected of them. Are we finally seeing, or have they found the right formula to actually bring out the best in some of their best players? I don't think a lot of people expect that the club would land someone like Bongani Zungu. He's also just walked into that team and given them just a different level, just a lift in terms of quality, in terms of experience, in terms of game management as well. The club currently sit in 5th on the Betway Premiership standings. Are there any surprises there? Did anyone expect them to be there? We're not really sure, but what we all know, what we all have been able to see in recent weeks, has been the impact of the two-pot system. That's what they're calling it in KZN, the two-pot system. Coach Atazwane, Coach Vusmuzi Vilagazi have certainly cemented their name in that team, and it was visible from as quickly as the first 2 games that they were at the helm. Yes, they lost the first 2 games. I think one was a league game against Orlando Pirates, and the other was a Nedbank Cup game against Stellenbosch. No, it was a Carling knockout game against Stellenbosch. Yes, but it was a cup game against Stellenbosch. Yeah, but you could clearly see that there was a plan, that there was a direction, that there was a philosophy that could probably culminate into something in the coming weeks, and it appears as if the two coaches have been able to sort of put their stamp on the team, and it's also reaping rewards in terms of points. Yes, they had lost their 2 games before they faced Magesi this past weekend, but the performance there, I could go as far as saying that was their best performance this season, or maybe their best performance in the league since 2 seasons ago when they beat Kaiser Chiefs 4-1 at Moses Mabhida. That was probably another special performance. Like that's the closest performance I could take it to, because they just looked comfortable. They just strolled to the game. They found each other with ease. New signing Koskona Hadebe also made an impact. It was almost as if he had been at the club for years as well. They reshaped their structure into a 3-5-2 system, and it didn't seem, or no one looked out of place. So yeah, AmaZulu have certainly upped the hopes of a lot of their supporters, a lot of their followers. Certainly, from a neutral's perspective, the potential that we've always seen with the squad seems as if it's finally going to be reached. So I think the final question to ask is, who's actually going to go down? If you look at the log right now, Roy AM and Makesi currently occupy the relegation zone. Roy AM obviously at the basement of the table, having played just 11 games this season. Makesi trying to fight their way back into potential safety as well. But yeah, Raw AM and the uncertainty that surrounds Raw AM, for me, I don't see a scenario where Raw AM doesn't go down. Because first things first, if or when the PSL makes a ruling on them, the PSL may opt to finish the season with just 15 teams, which means Raw AM are out of the Betway Premiership anyway, or if a potential buyer because the club was put up for sale just last week, so if a potential buyer comes through, takes over the responsibilities and basically all the processes of Raw AM, if something like that actually were to happen, it's actually going to be difficult for that squad to make up games. I think it's about 8 games now that they have to make up if you're going to include the cup game as well. It's about 8 games that they're going to have to fit in the last 2 months of the season. I don't see how they do that and do it successfully with such a thin squad. The club had already been struggling. They had already been playing with their DDC players because they haven't been able to sign players for the past 2 or 3 windows, I think. So I don't see a scenario where that club doesn't end up at the bottom of the log at the end of the season. So, which might be a cushion for the likes of Mikey's. Mikey's started the season off horribly as well in terms of league action, but you will remember they are the defending Culling Knockout Cup champions. So, but in terms of league action, started the season off horribly. It seems as if they were destined for the bottom. But in recent weeks, they were able to secure back-to-back wins over Cape Town City. They were able to secure, Cape Town City and Polokwane City. So those were 2 huge wins for them and sort of drew them closer to the likes of Marumo Gallants and Richards Bay. So it doesn't appear to be a foregone conclusion now that they'll be probably the team that's going to finish 15th. I think they are now 3 points off Marumo Gallants, and they are 4 points off Richards Bay. Yeah, so it's good. It's gonna be. I think the arrival of Coach Owen Takama at Magesi is gonna make it a tough battle in terms of deciding who either goes to the playoffs or who is potentially relegated. Obviously, depending on what happens with Raw AM as well. But I think my case in recent weeks, have shown that they have the potential to cause the odd upset or to hold against some of the big boys in the league, and it's just a matter of Coach Takama being able to find that sort of resolve from within. Something that he spoke about at their most recent press conference against AmaZulu, the fact that he felt as if the destiny of Magesi rested purely on the hands of the players. If they do what they need to do, then he's gonna be there to guide them. He's been there a couple of times and he survived relegation a couple of times. So he just put the challenge on them, and I think that's probably the right way to go. Yes, it's a thin squad and they're going to be challenged, but um, the cost of staying up amongst the elites comes with that sort of demand. So, Mike, is definitely an interesting watch. Marumo Gallants obviously recently fired Coach Dan Dance. They also fired former Kaiser Chiefs man who was their technical director, Male Fintegi, as well. They have Sandra Cavenda and they have, I think, Duncan Leches are taking on an interim basis. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of impact those two are able to make and how the team sort of kicks on after the departure of Coach Dan Dance, who's obviously known to be someone that sort of imprints a certain style of play in teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kick on from there. Richards Bay also have found a new lease of life. They're unbeaten in 3, 2 wins and a draw against Stellenbosch on Friday. Yeah, Richards Bay look like they probably have, or rather they've proven in recent weeks that they're going to be able to stem the branch, maybe avoid going into the playoffs again, because remember they were at the playoffs last season, so you can only expect that they have the necessary experience, and I think it just in general footballing terms as well, I think they have a better squad than the rest of the teams that they're going to be battling with. Obviously they've chosen not to sign or bring in another coach, but they've opted for continuity when they fired Coach Brendan Schroeter. they opted to keep Ronnie Gabriel at the helm, which seems to be paying dividends now with the players just responding to a familiar face. So yeah, Roy and Magesi, Marumo Gallants and Richards Bay. It's going to be a hard fight to stay into the Betway Premiership, and we're going to be there to see it. So that's episode 1 of the Indie Sports Recap. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment. We want to hear your opinions. This show is purely for you. So thank you. Be peaceful.